It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Jim Hepburn. Hi, Jim. How are you?
I'm good, Doug. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you. Thanks for coming on the show. Are you related to Audrey or Catherine?
No, I wish I was, but it's no relation of any kind, though. But I often introduce myself that way when I have to spell my name over any kind of phone call.
Well, I just thought I'd ask. It would have been a good conversation starter, but we'll move on to something else. So you got a book out called Hunted by Fire. It says debut. So this is your first published book?
It certainly is, yeah.
Okay, why did you decide to write a book?
Well, it's a young adult fantasy book, and it's mostly geared towards young men, and it's so hard to find good fiction out there. I found, at least when I was a teenager, going through high school and trying to find good stuff to read and occupy yourself with, because you blast through all the well-known stuff pretty quickly. You blast through Harry Potter and Percy Jackson and Aragon and all that stuff. But, and then as I got older, I really wanted to kind of write something that my younger self would have liked, and then hopefully that other young people would really like too, and help fill that gap a little. Seems like it's there.
Is that what you do? I mean, I would think one book you're going to have to do something else to support yourself, right?
Yeah, no, it started off as I have a full-time job that I really enjoy full-time, but no, the book started off as just a hobby that I would just do every day I get home from work and write a little bit every day, and it just kind of started piling up into a book. And yeah, maybe the dream would be one day that you get enough out there and you get enough people reading it and enough people enjoying it that it spirals into something new, which would be amazing. But for now, it's just nice to get it out there and to hear people's feedback.
Okay, well, who did you read when you were growing up? You said Harry Potter.
Yeah, well, I was naming several of the big franchises there: Harry Potter, Percy Jackson by Rick Riordan, Aragon by Christopher Paolini was really big where I am. But I would read anything and everything. I would go to the library at school. I'd have to find, I'd scour the shelves looking for stuff, Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and even other stuff that you just have to take a try on, because there's just nothing. I had a hard time finding stuff to consume, I guess, that could keep me going. And even my parents, they would go to the bookstores all the time and they would scour the bookshelves. They'd ask the bookstore attendants, hey, what's good for young boys? What's good for 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, and so on. And they would take any recommendations they could find. I read everything, though. Everything, as long as it was fantasy oriented, it had swords and fantasy and horses and stuff like that. It was up my alley.
I want to read something that's on your bio here. It says, it's always been his dream to inspire young men and women to pursue STEM projects. What is that? Well,
yeah, that's true. So that's related to a bigger idea that I had. It seems like when young kids go through school, and I don't know if this happened to you or not, Doug, when you were in high school or elementary school there, but you seem to get classified really quick, I would say, as either an arts kid or a science kid, depending on what kind of aptitude you showed for each subject. And I was always an arts kid. I was really good at English and drama to some extent, but English was a really good subject for me. And the sciences, so the maths and the biologies and the chemistries, you have to really work at those, I find. But there's so much benefit in those subjects that some kids really gravitate towards. Some kids who think really logically and kind of grasp them really quick. There's lots of great stuff in there that I think arts kids maybe don't necessarily appreciate right off the get-go, and they even probably, they might even classify themselves as just an arts kid really early, and they think, maybe going through high school when they're thinking about other things to do afterwards, where they're going to go with their life. Oh, math's too hard for me. Science isn't my thing. They just kind of write it off. But there's so much benefit there that can help you in life, and that could really that could really change your life in a lot of good ways. And it just takes practice, and it takes practice for everybody. Part of the reason why I wrote Hunted by Fire was to try to help inspire some of those English kids who might really like reading the book to maybe just try to go back to it once more or twice more and see if they could, see if they could try it again and see if they catch anything they didn't hit the first time.
Well, it's a two-way kind of a concept, because when I grew up, my parents' generation did not encourage me, or anyone else for that matter, to pursue a career in the arts, because in their mind that you can't make a living at it, and it's a very tough road. Now the tough road part is still there, but I think people's attitude has changed a little bit more, and particularly now with internet and with, there is a lot more opportunity, self-publishing books, home studios for musicians, all that stuff that didn't exist when I was a kid. The problem is that with the opportunities, it does give people, I think, a certain false sense of expectation that, oh, well, I can do this now because I can. But it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to make a living doing it. So it's equally still as difficult. It's just there's more starting gates, I guess would be the analogy to use, right? So
yeah, no, I totally agree with that. It's much, yeah, you're right. There's many more ways to get involved, and it is. I would agree with you also that it's probably a little bit more encouraged in a sense. There's lots of ways you can go out there, I think, but yeah, it's just as hard. And I think there's lots of things you got to do to make yourself successful and to build yourself up as an artist. And I think a lot of that takes time. And while you're doing that, you might as well be trying to find something else you can enjoy that you can actually support yourself with while you're trying to make art on the side until maybe it does blow up or do something like that, right? So yeah.
Well, I think that's the trick. I think that's the trick because, you can find a job doing anything, but you have to try to find something that is somewhat interesting, because I didn't. For 20 years, I worked at a job that paid good money, but I could care less about it. And in fact, it was so demanding that it stifled my creative ability for 20 years because I couldn't, I sort of had to use my left brain 100% so my right brain shut down. And, it took me a while to decompress to get back to my creative endeavors. I mean, better late than never, but it would be nice if there was a better balance. People could work at some kind of a job. I just talked to some guy on my show who managed to find a job with the government in the creative arts, which I thought, wow, that's a dream job. You get paid with government security of a job, and yet you're working in the arts. And I thought, wow, you did well.
That's interesting. Yeah. So what does he do?
He's a director at Children's Art Foundation something.
Oh, okay.
It's state government in New Jersey. And, well, he was just saying that even during the pandemic, they weren't shut down when most of the venues for musicians and film and everything were kind of shut down. So he managed to keep his job right through the pandemic. And I thought, wow, that was great. Very lucky for him.
Yeah, good for him. I don't know if there's a lot. To your point there, I think there's lots of jobs out there that could drain you. For sure, you have to find one. If you want to do art on the side, you'd have to definitely find one that frees you up your mental capacity at least a little bit on your spare time. That doesn't drain it all from you, as you said there with your experience.
Well, so is this what you want to do? I mean, do you want to eventually be a full-time writer? Is that possible for you to do?
Yeah, I'd love to think it's possible. It's definitely the goal in a lot of ways. It's I'm in it for the long haul in a lot of senses. I found a lot of inspiration for myself in writing, and that I haven't really ever found anywhere else. And it's something I look forward to every day to create these stories that are slowly being read and are being reviewed by people out there, which is amazing. And yeah, I'm in it for the long haul in that sense. It'll be a while, I think, before it gets to be super well known. But at the moment, it's definitely the passion, and it's been the passion for several years now, and it will continue to be, I think. Actually, right now I'm writing the second book, and I'm very close to being done. This will be a series, is what my plan is for it. and it's about 80% done. I would say 85% done, and then it'll move on to the editing and the beta reading and all that good stuff. But yeah, for sure, so that's the plan. That'd be great if that happened.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at your picture on your bio. You don't look that old, so I think you have time.
Yeah, I like to think so, if I keep playing my cards right.
So are you self-published, or did someone pick this up?
This is self-published, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, whether it gets traditionally published one day would be great too. It would depend on what that road kind of takes me down. But for now, I wanted to get it out there as soon as possible and to put it out in the real world and see what happened. So self-published was the way to go in my sense.
Well, give us a synopsis of the book.
Synopsis, yeah, sure. Well, so like I said, it's young adult fantasy. It's sword and board sort of era, and it's about a young 15-year-old boy. But in his world, humanity is ruled over by the tyrannical dragon gods, and they've subjugated humans for thousands of years. But this boy, though, unlike most others in his hometown, he feels like something's off. He feels like what's happening to them maybe isn't right. So he dreams of rebelling. But he's stuck because he's young. He's 15, and he needs to hide those feelings while trying to find out who he's going to be and find his place in the world amongst all these people who don't believe the same thing as him, and somewhere, maybe some place where he won't get found out. This boy's not combat trained, though he wants to be. And he's maybe charismatic or super socially astute, maybe like some of his friends, but he's very clever. He's got a knack for building and inventing and science and engineering. And coming up in his hometown is a famous tournament that gets held by the gods each year, where, they go through and they try to find the brightest young people. And so this boy, he jumps at his chance to enter just to really show the town and everybody else what he can do and what he's capable of. But there's lots of dangerous people involved, and there's going to be some he's going to have to get gritty and get resourceful, I suppose, if he's going to be able to find his way through this and get what he wants out of it and find some security.
If you were to compare this book to one that's already out there that people might know, which one would you compare it to?
One that's out there, I would say that it'd be probably, I think, most similar in a sense to Aragon by Christopher Paolini. It follows a young boy, and there's, like I said, they're similar ages, the main characters, and it's a bit of there's a long journey ahead. And both characters, I think, had to overcome similar struggles of trying to hide things at the very beginning, and they're going to develop that in different ways. Yeah, no, it's I'd say it's very similar, maybe in terms of the feel at the beginning, but of course where they go is very different, and the worlds are very different. But I'd say it's probably the most similar, I would think. Okay. If you really enjoy Aragon, you're probably also going to really enjoy this book.
All right, now you said that you've written another one. This is going to be a series. How many do you anticipate will be in this series? Probably,
I'll be writing this until I'm in my 40s, I would think, maybe. But, I'm thinking there's going to be at least 5 or 6. And if something wonderful happens along the way there and it starts getting picked up more, it might evolve. It just all kind of depends, right? Because sometimes you sit down at the writing table and you have an intention to write out, say a chapter that's 10 or 20 pages long, and then it turns into all these other chapters that evolve from the first one, and it goes in unexpected directions, right? The story that you think about in your head that you then intend to put on paper. So right now the intent is 5 or 6, like I said, and if it evolves into more, if there's places for the story to go that are exciting and fresh and entertaining, then that's where it'll go. Absolutely.
Okay. The book is out now?
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
How long has it been out?
It came out in October, so it's actually almost a full year.
Almost a year. Okay. Are you getting some good reviews?
Yeah. All the reviews have been exceedingly positive, which is so encouraging. And the ones that, to me, the ones I really look for when I scroll through them, I really look for anything from young people, and young men or women, really, in between the ages of 12 or 16, somewhere in there. Those are the ones that I really, really like, and I really like to read those carefully to make sure they enjoyed it, and then also that and hear their feedback, because that's so important too in developing the story down the road.
Well, Jim, we're going to wind this down. Thanks so much for coming on the show. My guest is Jim Hepburn, and the book is called Hunted by Fire. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
No, I don't really have a website quite yet, but you can find me on Instagram or on Facebook. I'm author Jim Hepburn on both.
Okay.
No, yeah, just one full phrase there, author Jim Hepburn. And yeah, I'm on either actively all the time. So that's where you can find me.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again. It was nice talking to you, and best of luck with the books.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. Good talking to you too, and have a great day.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Douglas Coleman's Don't Do a Podcast is a dryly humorous rant about Douglas's pet peeve, the unrelenting torrent of podcasts hitting the web on a constant basis. As technology has put podcasting within the reach of anyone, many wholly unqualified people have taken the plunge. This witty polemic tries to persuade them from broadcasting their drivel using Douglas's brand of sarcastic humor. Now on Amazon, only 99 cents.
Are you an independent musician? How would you like to have your songs played on hundreds of radio stations just like the one you're listening to right now? Join MusicSubmit.com and we'll promote your music to radio stations and blogs in your genre. It's free to set up your account, and we guarantee your music will be considered for airplay by radio stations worldwide. Why not sign up today? It's free. MusicSubmit.com. Radio promotion for indie musicians.
Hey, this is Ray Powers. Don't touch anything. You've got it right where you need it. Tuned in to the Douglas Coleman Show. You heard me.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Dennis Feece. Hi, Dennis. How are you?
I'm doing well, Doug. How about you?
Doing fine, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. Nice to have you here.
Oh, it's good to be here.
You've got a book out called Love, Pride, and Murder. How many books have you published at this point?
This is actually my second novel. The last one was published a few years ago, 10 years ago, something like that. I was still working at that time. I'm retired now from what would be called a daily job.
A regular job, yeah.
Regular job, yeah.
Actually, as a writer, if you were working something else, we used to call it a real job, as opposed to being
correct.
a writer.
Yeah.
Well, why did you decide to start writing?
Well, I've been writing all my life. It's not something that is new. Even in my work, my real job, I was writing quite a bit. Sometimes for my own amusement, sometimes something having to do with the job. I had several bosses that discovered that I had a way of putting words together, and I would write things for them, letters and odds and ends. In fact, I'm still doing it. But in terms of writing something creatively, again, I've been doing it for quite a while. Not a lot of it has been published, some poetry, but as far as writing fiction, that's been just within the last few years. Actually, this particular novel was a pandemic creation, so it was living through the pandemic. You're tasked with doing things that you might not have done before because you didn't really have the time for it, and that was certainly the case with me.
Well, I think that was the case with a lot of people because during the pandemic we were really busy at this show, and we created a new show.
Is that right?
Yeah, that sort of featured authors because people were locked in and they got around to writing that book they've been meaning to write. And
exactly.
There was a sort of pandemic of new authors on the scene over the last 3 years.
You're saying it's viral in some way.
Well, it was, yeah. I mean, your choices are kind of limited to what you can do when you can't leave the house. And writing seems to be something that was a good occupier for people. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about this book?
Okay. I guess it is a murder mystery. It takes place in New England. The telling of the story, it's first person, so the telling of the story is by the central character, a guy by the name of Thomas Stone, and he works out of Concord. New Hampshire is where he grew up, where he's lived most of his life, but he's had a life outside of New Hampshire. He was in the military and got involved in some interesting sorts of things that come out during the book. A lot of it is secretive. but it helps him during his investigations. Because he lives in Concord, he gets involved in a lot of state government issues. He has a good friend who they grew up together, who was an attorney, so they sort of play off of each other in their both of their pursuits. But the story itself takes place because of a young lady comes to his office looking for some help. She had a fiance who died in an automobile accident, seemingly in the northern part of the state on a snowy night. But she doesn't believe it really was an accident. She believes that it was something else. There was something else going on. And she can't get any support from the police department. She can't get any support from the family in pursuing it. So she comes to a private investigator sort of out of desperation. And that's where the story begins. It follows, without giving too much away, it follows the path of a lot of mysteries, I suppose, although it is somewhat different because it doesn't fall into the cozy mystery kind of category, and it also doesn't fall into the, sort of the Los Angeles alcoholic private investigator of yesteryear, and there's a lot of that's out there. This guy is somewhere in between that. He enjoys wine, not in excess. The story has some of the elements of a cozy mystery, but it really doesn't end that way. So I think it's unique, and I think that's part of the charm and the appeal of the novel. Was
any of this sort of inspired from real life events that you may have had?
That question has been asked before, and I'm, without being too, to try. As far as the special ops piece of it, if you haven't read it, then you don't really know what I'm talking about. But that's one of the questions that people who've read it ask me, and that part of it is fantasy. It's just fiction. Some of the other stuff, in my life, a lot of the people that you'll find in the novel were inspired by people that I have known or met. Not in the sense that it's a copy of them. It's simply that some of the ways they did things, are sometimes reflected in the characters. And then in my own case, I was an operations manager in some fairly large companies, from sort of entry level up to a vice president of operations at one point. And so the way I managed operations tends to be reflected a little bit in the book as well. So yeah, to answer your question, some of it comes out of real life.
So perhaps they were like composite characters? Yeah.
That's exactly what it was.
Okay. Yeah, we don't want to give too much away of the book. We want people to buy it, after all.
And enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to your other book. Your other book was called Journal of a Little Soul. Is that correct?
That was the name of it. It was more of a personal kind of journey. It wasn't a mystery, certainly. It came about as a result of some things in my life that were happening that, I started out writing it just as self-reflection, and then I decided that I'd turn it into fiction. The people that have read it and enjoyed it have said that it was well done. And in some cases, I had one woman that told me that it really helped her because some of the things that I was describing had been, had happened in her life, and it really helped her to get through some of the issues that she was dealing with. So it is, it's more of a romance, I guess, if you had to put a label on it. It's not like Nicholas Sparks or anything that's quite that intense, but it has a very personal feel. It also has a spiritual component. So very different from this murder mystery.
After you wrote your first book, what was your road about publishing? Did you self-publish?
No, the first book was published by an outfit that went bankrupt. maybe that says something. I don't know. But no, that it was covered. The cost of it was covered by the publisher. The first one. The second one was what's called a hybrid. So there was some monies that were involved on my side and some monies on the publisher's side, and so it was like a combined effort. It's really tough for an unknown author, comparatively unknown author, to get published in the way publishing is today. There used to be expenses for the large publishing houses that were set aside for finding new talent and helping new talent to get started. That is long gone. There's no such thing. Not that I'm aware of anyway. I couldn't tap into anything like that. So, I struggled for about a year to find someone to publish Love, Pride, and Murder. And I found a publisher, Covenant, that worked with me, and I think they did a great job putting it together. So I'm satisfied with it as it is.
Well, you're right about publishing. I mean, the whole landscape has changed dramatically, and the traditional publishers were always difficult to get into. But you're right. They used to take a chance with unknown authors sometimes. Now you've got to have a track record before they'll even look at you, and probably need an agent. A lot of them simply won't take unsolicited work at all, because there are alternatives. Before that, there really wasn't any alternatives. There was no such thing as self-publishing or even hybrid publishing. Those are all fairly new inventions of the internet, I think. But
I agree.
It's good and bad, because on the one hand, it gives opportunity to anyone, but the bad side is that it gives opportunity to anyone. And you have to look at it like that,
right.
Because there is just so much out there. A lot of it is really good, and a lot of it is not. And unfortunately for the consumer, to wade through all of the sort of garbage to get to the good stuff is a daunting task. Right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's so many books being published, and mysteries, I think, is probably one of the largest categories that people are likely to find, because mysteries are always interesting. Mysteries have an appeal, and have had an appeal since the days of Sherlock Holmes and some of the early, at least in the English-speaking world, in the early days of English writing, at least that kind of writing. And that kind of writing has continued today. People love mysteries, and it's something that is endlessly entertaining. And there is, to not overstate it, but there's a lot of dreck out there that really isn't worth reading. But it's there because people have the money to publish it, and they do it themselves. And it really is unfair to someone that just wants to read a good book, because you really don't know what you're going to get. If you go to Amazon, you see a title and it looks good, and you buy it, and you get into maybe 10 pages or 15 pages, and it's just not worth reading. And that's a shame. But it's also true, as you said, on the flip side, there are a lot of really good writers that really don't have a chance to get started, and then they give up, and it's a shame because the world has lost something, I think.
Well, there was the old saying about don't judge a book by its cover. Unfortunately, this day and age, you need to. Because if you go into a bookshop, the exciting cover is going to grab your attention if you don't know the author. And if you've noticed, if you go into Barnes & Noble, the more famous the author, the bigger their name is on the cover. In fact, they'll put the name...
Splashier it is.
Well, they'll put their name first on the top before the title of the book. And, that's all marketing. It's all gimmick like that. And so you do have to judge the book by the cover, unfortunately, I think now. That's not to say that a flashy cover is going to make the content any better, but it will grab people's attention.
There's a lot of sad truth in that. And unfortunately... it makes the marketplace really difficult for somebody that's trying to get started writing. It really does.
Well, true enough, yeah.
But one of the nice things, at least for me, is that my writing has come, or at least the stage of it has come later in life. So it is. Are you situated somewhere near Las Vegas? I believe someone was telling me.
Yeah, I'm in Las Vegas, right.
Yeah, well, people that I'm not a gambler. Isn't anything that I was ever interested in. But people will go in and they'll have a certain amount of money that they want to spend, and they spend it, they lose it, they leave. But a lot of people will go in and they spend way more money than they should. And at this end of my life, not that I'm close to the end, but I mean at this part of my life, I have gone through a lot of things in my life. And so I take writing, along with a lot of other things, for what it is. I don't put all of my money into that one crapshoot. or anything else for that matter. So I take it seriously. I enjoy it. I hope people will enjoy what I've written. And if it's successful, then I think that's great, and that's what I want. But, if it doesn't pan out, then, I have other things in my life as well.
Well, I think that's the right attitude. I don't gamble either, but I'll tell you, if you want to see a sad sight, go into any of the local casinos, not the ones on the Strip, because they're really for tourists, but people who live in Las Vegas will go to the ones outside off the Strip, the smaller ones. But go in there like on the 2nd of the month, and you will see all of these senior citizens in there gambling away their Social Security money. And it's really very sad. It is just pathetically sad.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. It's just something not just about gamblers, but it's just something about our society as well, I think.
Well, I mean,
that's also sad.
It's not easy to live on Social Security alone. That's true. But I see these people in wheelchairs at the slot machines, and and it's always the 1st or the 2nd of the month, and that it's the Social Security money.
Yeah.
And it just, well, it is a sad statement on our society, I think. But if they're managing to survive at that point in their life and they're having some fun with it, then okay, so be it. I'm not judging. I just look at it and kind of shake my head, But anyways, Dennis, we got to wind this down. Love, Pride, and Murder the book is out now?
Yes, sir. It is. It's been out for a few months.
Few months, okay. You getting some good reviews?
Yeah, actually, I've gotten some very good reviews. I haven't had, those exalted reviews that people get, New York Times bestseller list, all that kind of stuff. But the reviews that I've gotten have been very positive, and people have enjoyed it. I did a session here locally with a book club, and sold a bunch of books there myself, and the people just really enjoyed the book. They find it exciting. They find the pace is good. The mystery at the end is good. It has a sort of theme that some people will dig out of it, which is there, but they don't have to dig it out in order to enjoy the novel. So it has a lot of different levels, and so far I've had nothing but good reviews.
That's great.
Here.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Last question, and then we'll wrap it up. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
I do, but the website is under construction, and I'm afraid it would be disappointing if people stumbled across it. So I'm still working on it, and I'm not the most tech adept person in the world, so it's taking me a little bit of time to get it going. But they can go to all they have to do if they want to buy the book. Go online. You can find it. Just type in the title, and you'll get half a dozen different pages of opportunities to buy.
Okay, so it's available on Amazon, I assume.
Absolutely. Barnes and Noble, Goodreads, a bunch of places. Abe's.
All right, great. Well, Dennis, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was nice talking to you, and best of luck with the book.
Thank you,
Hope it does
Douglas.
well.
Thank you, Douglas. I appreciate being here.